The night began, like any other, with the familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath my steps as I entered the living room. She was already there, curled into the corner of the sofa, a book resting loosely in her hands. The soft glow of the lamp cast shadows across her face, highlighting lines I hadn't noticed before, lines I had never wanted to see. I sat down beside her, reaching out with a hand that hovered for a moment before retreating. The words had always been effortless between us, a rhythm we had perfected over years. "I love you," she would murmur as I left for work, as I returned, before sleep, after dinner, in the quiet moments when the world felt heavy. But tonight they did not come, not once. I waited, thinking perhaps she had simply forgotten, caught in her thoughts. But as the hours drifted by, I felt a weight settle in my chest that I could not shake. Silence had replaced the melody of our shared affection, and with it, a strange and chilling distance. I tried conversation, starting with safe topics: work, the weather, the mundane occurrences that had once felt like threads weaving us together. Her responses were brief, clipped, polite, but hollow. I noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes lingered on the pages of her book rather than meeting mine. I remembered the nights when we would talk for hours, voices low, fingers intertwined, hearts beating in unison. Where had that intimacy gone? I searched for signs of anger, resentment, disappointment, a clue that could explain this sudden emotional absence, but found only emptiness. I wondered if I had failed her, if my own fatigue and distraction had slowly eroded the tenderness that had once been second nature between us. Sleep came reluctantly that night. I lay beside her, our bodies close yet miles apart. The rhythm of her breathing was steady, untroubled, while mine was jagged with a tension I could not release. I wanted to ask, to break the silence with a question that might draw her back to me, to pierce the quiet that had become so oppressive, but the words lodged in my throat. What would I ask? Why don't you love me anymore? That would be too direct, too accusatory. Are you unhappy? Too simplistic. I tried instead to recall when the shift had begun, tracing the invisible line backward, remembering evenings when she seemed distracted, mornings when her smile felt automatic rather than genuine. Perhaps it had been months in the making, and I had been blind, comfortable in assuming love was eternal, forgetting that it must be tended. The following day, I watched her move through our shared routines like a ghost. Breakfast was eaten quietly, coffee sipped in silence, her eyes fixed on the window rather than the conversation I attempted. She laughed sometimes, yes, but it was a mechanical sound, unmoored from the warmth that had once made my heart swell. I tried to create small moments of connection, a hand on her back as she reached for a plate, a gentle tease, but each gesture was met with a polite nod or a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. By the time she left for work, I felt hollowed, as if each unreturned touch, each unsaid word, had carved a space inside me that could not be filled. Evenings became a trial. I found myself lingering over trivial chores just to delay the moment of confrontation with the silence. Our home, once a sanctuary, felt unfamiliar, cold, as if love itself had been replaced by an invisible barrier. I tried not to notice the way she flinched at casual touches, the way her laughter no longer invited me to share it. And yet, I could not abandon hope. Perhaps tomorrow, I thought, she would say it again. Perhaps tomorrow, the words would return to their rightful place in our lives, and the strange, creeping distance would be nothing more than a shadow, fleeting and inconsequential. But night fell again, and with it, the same oppressive quiet. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, tracing the cracks that resembled fractured paths of our marriage. I remembered the first time she said "I love you," how her eyes had shone. How the world had seemed to tilt toward perfection for a fleeting moment. And now, that phrase had become absent, a ghost of a sound I could no longer summon. Sleep evaded me, replaced by the gnawing fear that love, like a fragile flame, could be extinguished not with fire, but with neglect, with silence, with the slow erosion of attention and tenderness. The next morning I tried to catch her before she left, attempting light conversation, humor, anything to coax her back to me. But she was distant, polite, untouchable. I felt the first sharp sting of panic, not for what she had done, but for what we were becoming. I realized that love, if not nourished, could vanish almost imperceptibly, leaving only the memory of warmth. I resolved to speak that night, to ask the questions I had been avoiding, to confront the silence directly, but each day passed with incremental distance, each night a reminder that something fundamental had changed. I began to notice details I had ignored, the way she no longer lingered in shared spaces, the absence of small gestures that had once been automatic, the careful avoidance of my gaze. I questioned myself constantly, wondering what I had missed, what I had failed to do, what signs I had overlooked. And yet she did not complain, did not accuse, did not raise her voice. The absence of conflict became a torment in itself, a quiet warning that love, when unspoken, can wither unseen. That evening, I decided I could no longer wait for her words to return on their own. I waited until the house was still, the hum of appliances fading into the quiet, and I approached her in the living room. She was seated as always, the book abandoned on her lap, staring at nothing. My throat tightened with the weight of everything unsaid. "Can we talk?" I asked softly, careful not to startle her, careful not to sound accusatory. She nodded, not a flicker of emotion in her eyes, and I realized that the barrier between us had grown tall, silent, and cold. I spoke first, carefully, recounting my fears, my confusion, my desperate need to understand. I told her how much I had missed the warmth of her words, the simple affirmation of love that had once defined every day. I admitted my mistakes, the moments I had taken her for granted, the small, thoughtless acts that may have built a wall between us. I did not demand an answer, only the truth, only acknowledgement of the shift that had left me hollow. She listened, expression neutral, and my heart sank at the thought that perhaps my words were falling on barren ground. Finally, she spoke, and it was not harsh, nor accusatory, but deliberate and quiet. She told me that love had not vanished entirely, that she had changed, that she had been searching for herself within the marriage, seeking fulfillment in places I could not reach. She confessed that her silence was not cruelty, but a signal of a need to breathe, to reclaim something she had lost in the years we had been together. I listened, each word cutting and soft at once, as the realization dawned that love was not always a guarantee of forever. It was fragile, evolving, and sometimes painfully uneven. We talked until the night stretched thin, until the shadows of the room seemed to soften with the weight of our shared vulnerability. She admitted that saying I love you had become complicated, layered with unspoken disappointments and unmet expectations, and that her absence of words was not a withdrawal of feeling, but a reflection of the complexities we had ignored. I told her that I still loved her in spite of everything, and that I wanted to rebuild, to find the words again together, slowly, carefully. We did not promise perfection, nor an immediate return to what once was, but we promised attention, presence, and honesty. In the weeks that followed, the silence did not vanish immediately. There were mornings when the familiar phrase still lingered unspoken, afternoons when her gaze met mine briefly, a quiet acknowledgement of shared lives, of tentative healing. But slowly, with small gestures and patient conversations, love began to re-emerge not in grand declarations, but in the soft, consistent rhythm of effort and attention. I learned that love is not only in the words spoken, but in the effort to understand, to show up, to bridge the spaces that silence leaves behind. One night, months later, she said it again, softly, almost shyly, "I love you." It was not the effortless declaration of our early years, nor was it free of all hesitation, but it carried the weight of experience, of struggle, of survival together. Smiled, tears welling, and whispered back the words that had never truly left me. "I love you too." And in that quiet exchange I understood that love is not always constant, but it can be renewed, patiently, gently, even after the night it seemed to disappear. I realized that the night she stopped saying those words was not an ending, but a beginning, a chance to confront the gaps we had allowed to grow, to find depth in vulnerability, to understand that silence can be both frightening and illuminating. It forced me to see her, truly, beyond routine, beyond comfort, beyond assumption. And in seeing her, I found that love was not gone, it had been waiting, patient and persistent, for us to notice, to nurture, to speak again. From that night on, I never took a word for granted. Each "I love you" became a gift, not a habit. Each glance, a reminder. each touch a promise. And I learned that love is not only declared, it is preserved, chosen, and honored day by day, even when the words have momentarily failed. Silence, I realized, can teach more than constant affirmation ever could if we are willing to listen.